In section 3 of module 1, we talk about really two ideas. One is strategic inflection points and the other is strategy by analogy. So when we talk about strategic inflection points, what we're talking about is this idea that a firm strategy may not always be best suited to a specific environment. That specific environment, competing firms in that environment, they may change their strategies, create new innovations, do something completely radical, and what that means is that how a firm was competing may no longer be viable. And you can think about Amazon and Barnes& and Noble, that example that's presented in this section, for an example of a strategic inflection point. Amazon came along, started off as an online bookseller. Barnes& and Noble didn't respond or responded slowly, and there was this big shift from a bricks and mortar bookseller to an online place, right, to an online bookseller. The idea of strategy by analogy refers to this idea that there are several things that we kind of think of when we think of strategy. One is chess, one is war, the other is sports, right? So analogies can be very powerful and they can help us understand concepts, better, but we have to be careful with how we apply them. So in terms of chess, there's oftentimes a lot of strategy used in chess, but the rules to chess are fixed. You can't, the knight moves in a certain way, the rook moves in a certain way. But in strategy, in business strategy, firms are constantly trying to evolve the rules of the game, influence the rules of the game by investing in politics and lobbying and political action and committee contributions. So firms are constantly trying to change the rules of the game. So that chess analogy is good, but it's not perfect. This idea of war, right? So you have to have a good strategy in war, and that certainly is the case. But that brings the idea of war brings forth the idea that an intended strategy is not always the realized strategy. And so oftentimes when war plans are being set forth, the intended idea is to maybe just go over that little hill on the map. But in real life, that little hill is a giant mountain range. Soldiers can't do that. And so a new strategy is born while that strategy is being implemented, and you get a realized strategy, something that comes out of it. And then finally in sports, right? With sports, we talk a lot about strategy. And the whole goal of a sports team is to create a dynasty, and that's very much what a firm's job is, or a firm's goal, to create some kind of competitive advantage that will allow it to continue to compete at a very high level. And so to the extent that sports teams are out there trying to implement strategy with the idea of generating some sort of dynasty, the analogy of sports and strategy does work.